Hello, welcome back yet again. Chapter 3. Cool. Um, I'm kind of doing a bit of a ping pong thing on you guys, where we started with Chapter 1 stuff being, more about peerScholar itself and doing stuff in the application. And then Chapter 2, we kind of went to more pedagogical stuff, talking about ways to really enhance learning in peerScholar. Chapter 3 is going to be back within the application again, showing you some more nuts and bolts of how things go there. Yeah, just seems like a good way to allow you to switch focus every now and then as we go. So we're going to be doing some, we called this the sort of nuts and bolts because we're going to get down to some more nitty gritty, or maybe we called it nitty gritty, because we're going to get down to some of the nitty gritty about how to do things within the peerScholar platform beyond just setting up an activity and what it looks like from a student side. So this video 3.1, is about managing an activity. And I should say, by the way, welcome to my office. You've been in my home before, but you may have noticed the background has changed. We are now in my office, so welcome. Nice to have you all here. All right, so this is what I call the manage dash. This is a dash within peerScholar that we will use to manage ongoing activities and to do a couple of things with them. And mostly I'm going to go through this in the live interface, but just before I do, I thought I'd point out, kind of walk you through the steps we're going to take, and then we'll go into the live interface and do it a little more interactively. So just to help you kind of parse the interface, just highlight some of the different tiles and what they do. So on the far left of the interface, there's this navigation tile here where you can go to various activities that you've created. Also go to other interfaces, one that highlights your students, another your teaching team, your grading book, and the actions just kind of lists the various actions that you've done. So we can take a look at that as well. And notice on the very bottom there's the back to the all courses. So this is your way, if you ever want to get back from this manage interface to your list of courses and then activities within them, you can do that with that button on the bottom. So that's the navigation group there. Over here, this manage dash is actually kind of 3 dashes, so to speak. So right now, as you see, the overview is underlined, and we'll start there. Talk about what the overview does. But there's 2 others. If you click on either of those, you end up with a slightly different populated dash, and we will get there. But just know for now, that's a toggle between those. This section here is more of primarily a summary of your current settings. So this is about this activity, and it's just showing how many peers each students are assessing, how many actual questions there are part of that peer assessment, whether they're self-assessing it or not, whether they're supposed to do a revision, and whether they are assessing the feedback. It's kind of hidden over here. Let me go back and just let you see that. If you've added additional assessments, additional questions, it will list those there as well. The other critical part is up here. These are actually buttons that do something, whereas these are just sort of reflecting information. So if you actually want to edit the activity, delete it, or preview it, you can do it through those buttons. Okay. All right, if we just kind of move on. This puppy is all about grading, setting up the grading, doing the grading, and then ultimately releasing the grading to the students. The whole next video 3.2, will focus on this because there's a lot going on in this grading tool. So I'm not going to discuss that much in this video, other than to say that's how you access grading through that panel. But again, we'll come back to that next video. This part on the bottom here is a simple progress, lets you see how students are doing. So in this case, what this is telling us is that 85.7% of students have completed the create phase, and the assess phase is now open. That's why it's in green, but nobody has done it yet. And so this is, again, just a little at a glance. If a professor wants to see what's going on, that's cool. If they want to see more details, by the way, they would use this student progress, as I'll show you, and that'll give them a little more detail of what's going on. And then finally, this is what you use to actually schedule your activity when each phase opens and closes. So with that as an overview, let's just visit these within the system. So here's one of my practice activities, and this is that same manage dash you just saw. So again, you can skip from activity to activity, bounce around. And then let me just show you can go all the way back to your courses. So this is the the first, if it's the standalone, at least, let me be clear about that. If it's the standalone, this is your page with all the courses listed here, and so you can click into the course you want. Here's all your activities, and to get to where I just was, you see this manage button. So once an activity has been created, and especially when it's, well, as soon as it's created, it's here. But as it's scheduled and things are ongoing, if you ever want to manage an activity, you simply click on the manage button, and that brings you to the screen we're talking about here. Okay, so you can jump between your different activities if you want to manage them right there. This shows you the students that you have in your class and their status. This shows you your teaching team. So if you have TAs or other people that are members of your teaching team, you can get direct access there. Here's your gradebook. We haven't done any grading with this course yet, so that's why there's a whole lot of NAs. But if students are in multiple courses, or multiple activities within your course, you're going to ultimately see the grades that they have in those various activities. And the actions really is a list of who has done what recently in the context of this, and it goes on for a while. Okay, cool. So let's go back to yeah, okay, sure. We'll go back to a specific activity. Okay. I actually went to a different one than I started with. This one has been through the assess phase, so that's why this one is now in the reflect phase. Remember, I had those practice activities with each was in a different phase, so this is the one in the reflect phase. Okay, so those are what these things do over here. Over here, I'm going to come back to these, so I'll just toggle between them for a second just to show you what this does. But let's stick with the overview pane. So these just change the information presented below. And I should say, by the way, this hide activity, if you press that, then students don't see the activity on their side. So this is for you to control whether the activity is visible to students or not. That's your basic top bar. Let's visit this one. Again, as I mentioned a while ago, the information here is simply a summary of your activity. It includes some of your instructions to remind you what this activity was about, and it just shows you the settings that you used. Which is very useful, especially if you're copying an old activity or something and you want at a glance to kind of see what the settings were. They're right there. You can also preview the activity, so you can go into it and actually see what it looks like from a student perspective. Here, you can delete the activity. I won't click on that. Well, I will click on that. Let me just say, if you do click on that, you get this big red, irreversible, are you sure you want to do this? So make sure you want to do this, and you have to say, I understand, and before that, I'll allow you. So be warned, young men and women watching this. All right, and then finally, the edit activity here, this will bring you back to that original wizard that was used to set up the activity. So you can go back in there and make any changes you want to make to the activity, including the additional assessments and all that kind of stuff. Note that you could also set your dates directly from here, and you could customize grading from here. So this is a good chance for me to kind of highlight that there's really two approaches to doing this. One is, while an instructor is setting this up, they just continue on to the set dates thing, and then they continue on to the customized grading thing, and do this all in one sort of sitting while they define their activity. So that's one process, just do it all while you're doing it. But another process is just do this one, and that's all you need to really kind of get things set up. You can view them, make sure it's all right. You can come back later and set the dates, but obviously you have to do that before it actually starts, so you need to set the dates to get things actually going. And then customizing grading, you can do that at any point in the process, before, while it's ongoing, or after it's complete. It's completely up to you. So that's why we have the Manage Dash, where if you don't feel like setting these up while you're setting up your activity, you can just do the first one. You can build your activity and leave it there. You would save and close. If you do that, I'm just going to exit because I don't want to mess with anything. But yeah, you can do that directly from that interface. Another notion, sorry, the other things here are really related to those other two steps I showed you. So setting the dates is down here. Setting up, customizing the grading is over here. And so if we want to do them after the fact, we will use those two, and I will show you those in just a moment. But just for the third one, and we've already talked about this, the progress through the different phases is over here. So for grading, you can edit the grade, you can actually do the grading, and you can also hide or release the grades to students once the grading is done. There's a lot going on here. And a lot of flexibility and a lot of potential power, and so this deserves a video in and of itself, and that is what I'm going to do in the next one. But let's come down and visit this. So as far as actually running the activity, scheduling it, well, you don't have to schedule it. So this is in manual mode, but let's go through that. Let's do edit dates. So this is the same whether it's done in the wizard or done this way. You're going to be asked the exact same questions. Do you want to manually control things? That's what I'm doing now. So let me just explain what that means. The manual means you toggle when a phase opens or closes. And so for any of these phases, you can turn them on or off. And so this is very useful, by the way, if the instructor wants to do the activity within, say, a class or something. And so they might want to tell the class, hey, spend the next 15 minutes writing something. And now spend the next 15 minutes assessing what your peers wrote, and then finally spend the last 15 minutes reading your feedback and revising your work. So you can literally, imagine a class where you say, okay, is everybody done create? Everyone's done create? Okay, cool, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn assess on, and as soon as you do that, the students could log back in and go into the assess phase. And then when that's done, you turn that off and turn this on, and they can go into reflect. So you literally have the power, I guess, in a toggle right there. The other thing you can do, though, is program each of these phases to open and close when you want. And so you do that simply by saying you want to schedule the dates, and then you select this, which is a calendar, and you just, whoops, sorry. Schedule my dates. Oh, it's because it's not open. Is it? I'm puzzling in front of all of you guys, which is not cool. Okay, it's because this one is open that it's giving me a hard time. But normally you can just click on the start date, get the calendar, show the range of dates you want, and it'll set your start date and your end date, and you're done. Then you can, if you want, get fine-grained and play with time. If you want to have a start time and an end time. You can also allow late submissions. Now, let's be clear about this, because this is one part that's kind of interesting. So first of all, we do allow late submissions if the instructor wishes on both the first and the third phase, but not the second phase. So the third phase is easy enough. If you allow late, then the system continues to accept those revised activities and such, even after that date is passed. It will flag them. You'll see in the gradebook that it's flagged as late, it's time stamped, so you have a sense of when it came in, but this will just keep allowing people to submit after the closing date, okay? That one's easy. First phase, it'll also kind of do the same, but depending on some of the settings you have, whether they have to have done the previous phase before they do the next phase, things like that. If you do say that, if you say, I don't want them to go into assess until they've done create, but I'll allow them to do this late. What that means is if a student tries to submit, but this date has already passed, and in fact, let's imagine the assess phase is open. When they try to go into the assess phase, it will tell them, you cannot do this phase until you complete the previous. Click on this link to complete the previous. And when they click on it, it brings them back to create. They can do their work in create and submit. And then once they do, then they can get into the assess phase. Once again, their work will be time-stamped, and you will see that it's late, but it will allow them to continue on with the process. No need to get in touch with anybody. They can roll right along, and the system guides them through that pretty well. The one thing to keep in mind is that you cannot do the assess phase late. That is, once the reflect phase is open, you really can't have students continuing to assess, because some students are already getting their feedback, and you can't have additional feedback coming in while some students are already getting their feedback. So this has to be a sort of hard deadline, although you can add a space of time in between these. You can have this close one day and have this not open until 2 days later. And then when this closes, you can message or even just send an announcement, hey, if you have not submitted this yet, depends how draconian you want to be. You could just say, well, that's too bad. You get a 0, or you get a 0 on that phase, whatever you want to decide. But you could also say, you know what, I'm going to open it up for an extra day. You get one more day to complete your assessment, but I'm serious this time, kind of thing. And so you can eat some of that time and push the date back and get more people to assess. Now, why you want that is, recall that each student is assessing some number of peers, let's say 5. And so if they don't do their assessment, then 5 of their fellow students will get 1 less piece of feedback than they should, which is suboptimal, right? You'd like them to get the full set. If they review 5 people, you would like them to get 5 reviews back. But what can happen is they review 5, but they only get 4 reviews back. It would never be worse than that. But that's the problem if people do not complete the assess phase. And remember also, this is where a heck of a lot of the practice is going on. So in my case, I say you must do this phase, and you must do it by this date. And if you don't, you get 0 on the whole activity. So I'm pretty tough about that. And it works fine for me. Seems to work all right, but it's good to be very clear about that, with students. Okay. So, I mean, that's basically this screen in a nutshell. Let's just go back over here now very quickly. So what I'm going to go on to is the student progress and grading screen, and just very quickly highlight that really what this allows you to do is see where students are, and if you want to interact with their work, you can do this across the different phases. So those are those 3. And then at the end here, there's a thing about grades, where you can actually, if the work has been graded, you'll see the grades that students have. And if you want to drill down, you can click on that little arrow and drill down a little more. Also, you can view the distribution. So if you want to see, hey, whose work did Steve review and who reviewed Steve, you can click down and see that distribution of what's going on there. Okay, so that's a student progress and grading. I also always should have highlighted that there's this in-app help, which is, if you click on this question mark, you can get access to a variety of help things. I'll show you in just a moment. And finally, let me just say there's this analytics dashboard. This is still under development, so it's going to show some information, but if you want stuff, if your institution or your professors ask for certain bits of feedback, we can continue to develop this as per your needs. So let's go there quick in the app now. Student progress and grading. Notice things like the following. So let's say this bum over here, Steve Joordens, he has not even started the create phase. And let's imagine things aren't quite as far along. But this is another way you can submit late. So maybe you tell this person, listen, I'm not really letting most people submit late, but you were in the hospital or you had whatever, and so I will allow you to submit late. Email me your submission. You can do things like edit this person's work, or you could just allow late access, by the way, 1 person at a time. So you could tell this bum, Steve Joordens, hey, submit now, and I've opened it up just for you. Go ahead and submit now. And get that done. Or you could say, email it to me. And if he emails it to you, then you can copy and paste his work into this box. So you'd edit the box, you'd copy and paste his work into the box here, and then you'd save it. And once you save it, it's now in the system. If you want to mark it as submitted, so it would automatically be marked as submitted when you save it, I think. But if not, you can mark it as submitted or not submitted. So you can toggle that back and forth. Okay, so the larger point being, this gives you some options to interact with the student information and see what they're doing. So let's take this one other example and say, let's edit this person's work. Well, this person's actually done something, and so you can actually see their work that they submitted. Okay, and if they said, oh my goodness, I submitted the wrong thing, you could copy and paste something else, etc. Assess phase, same idea. Not as much work, but notice you can allow late access here on a one-by-one basis. So if you have a specific student, you can allow them to still get in and do their assessment, and as long as other students who would have received their feedback have not yet logged in here, everything will work fine. So this is a way to let individuals get access to the assess phase late, etc. And same options that you have here. Okay, so just some ways to interact with the material. Of course, the bigger picture is, you're seeing as things happen, you're seeing who's submitted what, where they are, what % of your students are where, etc. So this allows you to kind of watch things develop as they develop. Also, again, you would see the grades here, and if somebody is not yet graded, you could use this call out to see all of their work and provide a grade to it if you wish. Now, I'm not going to click that button right now because we'll click it in the next video, and we'll talk about it in the next video. I want to make sure I have a proper populated example for you because we're going to need that for the grading one. So we'll come back to this, but just know that's what you can do. You can sort in a variety of ways each of these columns, all that kind of functionality. You can also view the distribution. So this tells you who each person, who the peers were, who the 5 peers were associated with each person as they go through. And it shows you how many reviews they did, how many reviews they received. So all this kind of information to help you out on that front. And you can search as you go through, etc. Skip back here. Okay, so I think that largely covers that. Finally, analytics. Again, what I want to highlight for you here is we're really just building this out. So what you'll always get is some idea of completion rate for your activity. You'll always get a sense of the grade distribution. It's only not here now because I haven't graded anybody yet. So we'll come back to that when we have some grades in the system. And here you're getting a sense of recent activity, what's been going on in the system recently, so you can get a sense of that. But this is really a page that we want to see developed in association with professors. What do they want to see? We're going to have a whole other set of analytics that feeds back to the administrative level, a much richer sense of where you can look at what's going on in all the various classes in peerScholar in terms of, a number of things. But we'll get to that one. But for this one, this is the class-based, and so the question really is, if you have an instructor that says, what I really want to be able to see at a glance is X, then tell us what X is, and let's add this in. A great way for you to bridge. All right. So that is managing an active peerScholar activity. So I will stop here, and next one we'll get into that grading fund. Okay, cool. Thank you again very much. Have a great day. I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.